here right now, which makes
This is Matt McCormick with the Columbia Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to be beginning here in about 5 minutes. I would ask that everybody that's joining the call, if you have not already, please take a look and mute your microphones, so that way we limit the amount of feedback, and we greatly appreciate it. And like I said, we'll be getting started here in about 5 minutes. Welcome. This is Matt McCormick, President, Columbia Chamber of Commerce. We're going to go ahead and get started. We appreciate everybody that's come on for our virtual COVID-19 business community panel. I would like to start off with two things. One, that this panel discussion is being recorded and will be available on our Chamber's social media pages and on the Chamber's COVID-19 resource website located at columbiamochamber.com immediately following this event. We would also ask for everybody that is on the conference call, the community panel, if you would please mute your microphones and maybe your cameras, except for our speakers that we have coming up. So please mute your microphone. So in today's virtual community panel, we will be discussing official city regulations with City Manager John Glascock, COVID-19 and your business with Michelle Shikles from Columbia Boone County Health and Human Services and Small Business Administration Resources and Loans with Small Business Development Center Director Mark Christian. Each person will speak for about 7 to 10 minutes, and then we will spend a few minutes asking them questions that were submitted to us prior to this event through our online survey. Thank you to everyone for being here, and let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, City Manager John Glascock, discuss the orders that the city has put in place to work on keeping our community health and safe as we navigate these waters. So John, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thanks, Matt. And 7 to 10 minutes would be really long for me. But
okay.
Anyway, so we started out calling the direction, emergency direction, and then Stephanie followed up with a couple of orders of what we're doing. So from city regulation side, basically we've stopped parking enforcement downtown. We've stopped utility shutoffs for non-payment, those types of things. We've allowed loading zones in front of the restaurants so they could do carry out. So, you know, if you have a restaurant downtown where we have parking, we can have you put up a loading zone so you can have people pull up directly to your door. We stopped collecting credit card fees on utility payments, and so that we're trying to get people to do more online. So we're trying to get that going. We do have that going. Sorry. We're also looking at extending business license expiration date. So if your business license is coming due in the next few weeks, we're trying to look at extending that for you so you don't have to worry about that as well. And I'll just say the last thing that I have that basically is on my end of it is people want to know if we're going to have a stay-at-home. We are discussing that. We're in the process of talking about that. What it looks like, I can't tell you, but it's in discussions as we speak. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know there was one on parks, and I'll just in the order that we're looking at, we're closing all the playgrounds basically because they're touch points. That's about all there is in parks. You're allowed to be on the trails. You're allowed to be out in public. We want to encourage people to go outside, but we want them to also stay with that social distancing of 6 to 10 feet.
John, thank you so much for giving us some updates. There were a couple questions that we did receive. You answered one of those. People have been wondering, are they allowed to go outside, go out to the trails, enjoy all the quality of life things that we do have. But please make sure, as John said, that you recognize that the parks are, a lot of the parks are closed. Playground equipment is closed, actually, as they are touch points. John, one of the questions that we received is, so we've started off with an ordinance of no more than 50 in groups. That was shifted to an ordinance or an order by Health and Human Services of no more than 10 people in a space. Could you address a little bit of the difference between those and what people need to be looking for?
Well, we're just trying to hold down passage of this disease, and 10 people, is not a lot. When we talk about a restaurant, there's probably at least 5 people in the wait staff or even the prep of a restaurant. So that gives you 5 people that you can have inside your restaurant at dining in. And of course, we're not dining in now. So, that's what you have to look at when you talk about business. When you're talking about employers, I'm just going to say I don't think that applies to that, but we are asking you to do social distancing at this point, to where, you know, they're spread out across the building. So, you know, we're just trying to keep people from gathering, having parties, and everybody's doing the right thing. Everybody's very conscious and trying to do the right thing, and we really applaud that from the city.
Thank you, John. Once again, I would remind everybody to please mute your microphones. It looks like we are working on, for some reason, the PowerPoint has come off, and so we're working to get that put back up for everybody. It'll have a lot of additional resources. John, what are some of the questions that the city's receiving a great deal from the business community, maybe in relation with how working with the hospitals, things along those lines?
Well, we're getting a lot of feedback on just how it affects them. A lot of our major employers, such as Shelter, Veterans United, maybe MBS Books, you know, they're wanting to know about this 10-person limit, how it affects them. We're just moving, you know, toward, I'm just going to say, you know, staying at home, trying to get many people as stay at home as we can. We're asking them to voluntarily comply. And so that's basically a lot of the questions that we're getting is from the major employers. A lot of the restaurants and stuff have already gone to, you know, that had gone to carry out. They were just asking for a little help on the parking downtown, the loading zone, so they can stay in business. And that's what we're really trying to do, is eliminate those rules to keep everybody in business, keep everybody moving forward, so we can get through this crisis.
Wonderful, thank you. And I would say that what you are seeing, for the most part, everybody is complying with the suggested processes, the suggested things they need to do, as far as, you know, personnel that are able to work from home, please do so, limiting trips, being respectful of, you know, certain hours within our grocery stores for our older population, things like that. Have you seen everybody, you're seeing the same thing?
Yeah, you know, a lot of people that I know talk about that extra hour they get at Hy-Vee going in, and that's a great thing that Hy-Vee is doing. Those are the kind of adjustments that people are looking for, especially the elderly, so they can get out and be as safe as they can and get what they need.
Sounds good. We also know that many of our other stores are doing the same for those certain hours, early morning hours, if you will. I know there's a couple resources along with the Chamber's website. The Convention and Visitors Bureau has a website, as well as the city, that talks about a lot about what are stores doing, what are the different stores and restaurants. Have they, you know, of course, they've all moved to the curbside pickup, but there are processes for that you can link to those. So we appreciate the work that everybody's doing and that the city's doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to move on to our next speaker now, and now we would like to welcome Michelle Shikles with the Columbia Boone County Public Health and Human Services to discuss best business practices to keep you and your staff safe and productive. Michelle, are you on the call?
I am. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Oh, please, you should be able to.
Okay. Whoops. Can you see it?
There we go, right there. It just came up. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, it's not letting me. There we go. All right. So as he said, I'm Michelle Shikles. I'm the Public Health Promotion Supervisor here at Columbia Boone County Public Health and Human Services. And sorry, my computer is going really slow or something. Oh, there we go. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about preparing your workforce, what you can do to help your workforce get ready for I guess we're really in the COVID-19 right now. First, know the signs and symptoms of COVID-19 and what to do if staff become symptomatic at the work site. So look for things like if your staff are reporting fever, shortness of breath, cough. Encourage your employees to stay home if they're sick. You can send your employees home if they're sick. And encourage personal protective measures among staff. So make sure they're washing their hands, wiping down frequently used materials, door.
Michelle, are you still there? I believe you muted your microphone.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we are.
Okay, I don't know what happened there.
We're all learning. We're all learning how to do these things digitally, right?
Yeah, I've used others. I've never used this one. I've used Zoom and FaceTime and things like that, but this is a new one for me, so I apologize.
No worries. We appreciate your help.
Yeah, I think I was at cleaning and disinfecting frequently used surfaces. So if you have conference rooms, doorknobs, things like that, make sure that they are being wiped down between use, and ensuring that you have all that supplies, including hand hygiene supplies, readily available. It's taking a second for, I think, my computer to make the switch, but hopefully the next slide.
And we'll also after the call, we'll also post the slide deck. Michelle, if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us, we'll make sure to post this slide deck up so our listeners and others can read it as well. Okay,
absolutely. Next, encourage your staff to telecommute, to telework if they can, especially if they're at increased risk for severe illness. So, and who we're calling increased risk for severe illness, people with heart disease, lung disease, diabetes, really anyone with a chronic illness, people who are pregnant, all fall into that category. And then implement social distancing practices if possible. So make sure that people are 6 feet apart. Some places are doing this by staggering cubicles and scheduling their time. So they're doing shift work. So half the staff is coming in and working at a certain period of time, and then the other half of their staff is coming in at another 8-hour period of time, so they can work in every other cubicle to make sure that they're 6 feet apart between all their employees. And this applies for meetings as well. So when you're meeting with employees, really try to keep that 6 feet of distance. And then decrease social contacts in the workplace. So if you can turn your in-person meetings into meetings like this, or Zoom meetings or FaceTime, we encourage that. And then of course, limit large group gatherings and non-essential work travel. So some questions that we have been getting, and I apologize that my slides are not moving forward, but common questions that we are getting is, first, can my business stay open? So right now, yes, if we do move to an order similar to what they have in St. Louis and Kansas City, that response may change, but right now, businesses can stay open. And if an order like St. Louis or Kansas City goes into effect, it only applies to businesses that are not considered essential functions. And the food establishments can stay open, but they must be carry out or takeout only. And gyms and entertainment facilities they have a max of 10 people. And then all other intentional gatherings are a limit of 10 people. Another question that we're getting is, what if I have an employee who is sick and has not been tested for COVID-19? So we are telling anyone who is sick to stay home. So if you have an employee who is sick, tell them to stay home. And then we get a lot of questions about, what if I have an employee that tests positive for COVID-19? So if I have an employee that tests positive for COVID-19, do I have to close? No, you do not need to close if you have an employee that tests positive for COVID-19. We get questions about, will you be notified if you have an employee that tests positive for COVID-19? This kind of depends. So we may notify you if we need to contact you in order to get the contact information of people they have been in close contact with. So when somebody tests positive for COVID-19, we follow up with everybody that they've been in close contact with. Close contact means they have been within 6 feet of somebody for a period of time. So that may be people who work near them, but it likely is not anybody in an organization. So for example, here, it would likely be my staff, but maybe not the staff that works on the other side of the building, or definitely wouldn't be the staff that works on the other side of the building. Sometimes people don't know the contact information for their coworkers, and so we do need to contact employers and get that information from them. If you have an employee that tests positive for COVID-19, you may or may not have staff that are quarantined. So if your employee tests positive for COVID-19 and they had close contact with other employees, then those employees would be asked to quarantine for 14 days. But for example, if you have an employee that tests positive for COVID-19 and they just got back from vacation and they haven't been in the office, then none of your other staff would be required to quarantine. And then if you have an employee that tests positive for COVID-19, when can they return back to work? Your employee will be told by their healthcare provider or us when they could return back to work, but it will be at least 7 days. And then what if you have an employee who was quarantined? So quarantine means that they were in close contact with somebody who is positive for COVID-19, but they themselves are not positive. So you may have an employee quarantined if they traveled and they returned from a level 3 country. And level 3 countries are China, most of Europe, Iran, Malaysia, and that list is getting updated every day. You may have an employee quarantine if they've been in close contact with a person who has COVID-19, and if they have been in contact with a person who has COVID-19, we will tell them. So Columbia Boone County Public Health and Human Services will be the one that tell them that they need to quarantine. And then how long do they quarantine? They're quarantined for 14 days. And then if you have an employee who is quarantined because of an outside work exposure, we get a lot of questions on this. Do your other employees need to be quarantined? And the answer is no. So for example, if my husband tested positive for COVID-19 and I have to be quarantined, my staff and the people that I work with every day do not need to be quarantined. And then will Public Health and Human Services notify my employees if they need to be quarantined? And this kind of depends. If they're quarantined because of travel, we do not notify them because we don't know, when people are returning from these level 3 countries. But if they are quarantined because they had close contact with an individual who is positive, we will notify them. And that may change if we have widespread community spread, because it would be like the flu. It's just not physically possible for us to contact everybody. Any questions?
Michelle, thank you so much. I can't imagine the different scenarios you are having to go through, and you went through a lot of the questions that we have, and so I greatly appreciate you doing so. So one of the questions that we also received, and I think the answer will be, if we go down this road, that will be defined at that point. But ask you, so there's been some questions about what are essential services, what are essential businesses. If we move to the point that we do a stay-at-home order through the city and the county, is it defined at that point, or how does that operate? If you can answer that question.
Yeah. So when that order comes out, that order will outline the essential businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And yeah, and if you want to know Well, in other areas, essential businesses, of course, law enforcement, healthcare, social services agencies, any business who is providing services for those businesses, home health, businesses that help determine eligibility for social services, agriculture, food. It's a very long list.
It's a very lengthy list. I know some other states have done so, and so they've posted theirs and such. So if people have scenarios that they're dealing with in their company, we have our PowerPoint up now. What is the best way for people to get a hold of you or ask these questions? Understanding you are getting just flooded with questions, I'm sure, but I believe you have a 24-hour hotline and email, and kind of what's your process there to get those answers out?
Yeah, we encourage, if you have a question about your employee, or if your employee has a question about whether they should return to work or go to work, have them call us. We get those questions all the time, and every situation is a little different. So please have them call us. We'd be happy to answer that question for you, and then we can ask some health questions, and you don't have to do that. I will say that we'll give you our health recommendation, but you, as your business owner, you get to decide your own policies. And so if you want to go further than what we recommend, that's your choice, and you have the right to do that.
And Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know the answer to this question. Yeah, business owners also need to be aware that there are Hippa laws out there for people, health Hippa laws, and also if there's specific HR or labor law questions they might have, they need to probably contact their labor law attorney or their HR professional for those type of questions, correct?
Absolutely. What we'll be providing is public health guidance.
Okay. And we'll also, while we're talking, we'll also let people know that we're going to be doing more of these webinars as we continue over the weeks, and we'll be covering different topics such as possibly labor law and some other things along those lines. So we'll be covering that as well. Michelle, thank you so much, and thank you for all the hard work that your office, where you're at, and taking care of us. I can't imagine the amount of hours that you are putting in, but we do appreciate greatly you being on this call and taking the time. And again, we'll make sure that Michelle's slide deck is loaded up so that you can have access. We apologize, we're having some opportunities, but we'll have that loaded up on our COVID-19 resource page on our chamber page so that you can go through that. And Michelle, we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. And now we're going to move on to our last speaker, which we're going to be talking about SBA resources and loans. Here to talk about an overview of the different loans and SBA programs that are out there. As most everybody might have heard, and if you have not, the SBA approved Governor Parsons' request to make Missouri eligible for SBA loans and other assistance. So right now we're going to welcome Mark Christian with our local Small Business Development Center and to talk about some of that. And so Mark, we're going to hand this over to you.
Great. Thank you, Matt. And I appreciate the opportunity. We've gotten a lot of questions, obviously, about the SBA Disaster Loan Assistance Program. What that means is primarily a group of loans, and what most people are eligible for under the coronavirus are what are called economic injury disaster loans, right? There's no physical disaster. In the past, it's always been tied to a flood or things of that nature. And there's still loans that are eligible. And if you're currently receiving a disaster loan linked to a tornado or flood or something like that, you would still be eligible also for an economic injury disaster loan. We often get questions about grants and things of that nature. As of right now, there are really no grants. Everything that SBA has is a loan. And those loans can't go up to 30 years. At about a 3.75% rate was the latest update I got actually this morning from the SBA. I think three primary questions that business owners have to ask themselves if they're eligible for these type of loans are, was my business negatively impacted by the coronavirus? Would I be able to meet my financial obligations if the virus wouldn't have happened, right? And and can I get assistance somewhere else? And I think that's really ambiguous when I say, can I get financial assistance somewhere else? So one of the things I would suggest is that the first step people take is they contact their local bank, whoever their primary banker is, or where they normally get their financial, funds from, and who they bank with, and discuss, can I get a loan from you or some type of financial assistance? And prior to doing that, you need to check your credit score. You need to get your financial statements together for the last 2 or 3 years. If you haven't been in business that long, just get your current statements. And then make sure that you paid your federal state taxes and things of that nature. And then typically they're going to ask for 2 or 3 years of state tax of tax returns. All those type of things, whether you go for a traditional loan, SBA, or if you do a disaster loan, you're going to need all those type of things anyway to qualify. So the purpose of the economic injury disaster loans, the EIDLA, that you'll see that on everything, EIDL, and I was like, what is that, right? But that's really to pay current debts, to make payroll, to make accounts payable, and any fixed debts, or that's the SBA calls them fixed debts. I assume they're talking about your current, things that are less than a year, and the gap. The purpose of the loan is to replace money that your company or business would make under normal circumstances if the virus wouldn't have impacted you. Okay. So if a company wasn't able to meet their financial obligations before, they're not going to be eligible for a disaster loan under the SBA. Right.
Mark, thank you so much. Did you have any other? I didn't want to interrupt you.
No. There's so many things depending on what the questions are, right?
Yes.
So if you have some questions, I mean, in general, the loan period is going to run to the end of the year through December right now, unless something changes December 21 of this year. People can apply, and collateral will be needed for anything typically over $25,000. Now, this is a very fluid process. So,
Mark, I'm going to ask, let me interrupt real fast. If you just joined the call, or if you were on the call, could you please take a moment and mute your microphone so we make sure that everybody could hear Mark and the information that we are putting out. So if you would, please mute your microphones. So Mark, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe you said the loans are open until the 21st of December. It's for up to $2 million. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's the total. Well, it's $2 million for most businesses. However, if you're considered a major employer in a region, that $2 million cap may be raised.
Okay.
At the discretion of the SBA. So I think that's a great, if you are a major.
Oh, Mark, I believe you accidentally muted your microphone. If you could please unmute your microphone.
Back?
Yep, there you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Right. So the cap is $2 million typically. However, if you're a major employer in the area, the SBA can waive that cap and increase the amount.
Wonderful. A couple questions that we received from some of our audience members. One is our business is a micro business. We have less than 10 full-time employees, and we are a service-based company. How difficult will it be for our company to receive the loan? Is that going to be a lot through the process and what you turn in? Or can you address that a little bit?
Right. No, that's actually a perfect business for a SBA loan, as long as that you can prove that you're impacted by the virus negatively. Right. The process is going to be the same for all applicants. That you have to meet the SBA credit criteria, and that you were performing well or able to meet financial obligations prior to the disaster. Right. Yeah. The purpose of these economic disaster loans is to replace revenue a company would normally make, and then put the terms of the loan up to 30 years at 3.75%, out in such a way that you can make that financial obligation, so it's not a burden.
Wonderful. Another question we had was, I own a small business. My business is not currently to the point where we are experiencing economic injury, but we anticipate that will happen soon. We will soon be in that situation. Do they need to go ahead and apply for that SBA loan now, or do they need to wait until they know what their economic injury is?
So my suggestion would be to go ahead and start that conversation with your local lender, right? And see if they will make a loan to you, because one of the criteria is you can't get financial assistance from another source.
Okay.
Right? Now, it doesn't say that you couldn't go ahead and get your package, get your financials, check your credit score, pull your tax returns together and kind of put that packet together. So you would have it to take to your local lender, and then also you would have it available when you do the application process.
Wonderful. Thank you. You answered part of this question, which was how long will the loans be available? They'll be available until December 21st of 2020. But one of the questions is there a certain amount of money? Is it a bucket of money, and once that's out, it's out? Or is that loan available all the way to December 21st, 2020? So say in September, or November, somebody can apply for that loan and not worry about that bucket of money, if you will, is gone.
I don't. Yeah, it does, and I didn't have a good answer for that.
Okay.
We've never had a problem before with money run out. I'm interested to see how the stimulus package is going to affect some of this, because some of those loans are, or how that, I'm not even sure how it's going to be structured, or when they get this latest legislation passed, then we'll have more information, and maybe we'll have a different type of program to offer. Maybe there will actually be funds that you don't have to repay, or I don't know. It's.
I know Congress is working on phase 3 of the Family First recovery package that they've been working on, and it has some of this in there. So as these things continue to change, we will make sure to definitely put that information out there. Do you know about how long it takes for these things to generally go through the process? If somebody decides the SBA loan process is the best process for them, about how long does that process take? That might be a bit of a guess right now, since I believe all 50 states have now officially been approved for SBA loans. But can you talk a little bit about the process there, about what kind of length of time?
Well, if we're going through the direct to the SBA and everything else is, if you have everything in order with your taxes are paid and you meet all the criteria. Now, they had told me initially they're shooting for under 30 days.
Okay.
And they're talking weeks, but I think with the size of this disaster and with so many people being eligible, I think 30 days is probably fairly realistic.
Okay.
If you have everything in order, if they're not coming back to you on a form or something that wasn't filled out correctly, and that's something we can assist you with. But again, we want to make sure that you are eligible for that you aren't eligible for financing from somebody else, because that is one of the criteria.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I know one of the opportunities SBA has had through this process, we were on a conference call with the U.S. Chamber and SBA earlier last week. One of the opportunities they've had is actually they've not had a virus be a part of a disaster relief.
Right.
It's usually always focused on natural disasters such as tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, those type of things, but not a virus. So we do ask that everybody make sure they're being patient with the SBA as they're trying to put this all together to make the fits and all that process. We have had a couple, if people are having challenges getting signed up online or starting that process online, would you recommend that they keep continuing trying, due to the fact that SBA is probably getting overloaded on their web application process?
Right, right. And there's two ways to do that. You can do it through the online interactive, or you can download the forms and fill them out and then upload them. So that might be an alternative if the website is getting overloaded, is to go ahead and download the forms and fill them out. And then if they're busy, you can go back and just re-upload them, right? So.
And I believe we have up on our page there, up on your screen, is the SBA loan process, the disasterloan.sba.gov/ELA. And that walks you through the process and helps you start that process. Again, as Mark said, encourage you to also reach out to your local financial institutions and talk with them also and work with them and what is going to be the best for you as you move forward through that process. Again, Mark, thank you so much for your time. We have Mark's contact information there and their website, and that Mark has graciously, as you said, please contact you if you have any questions as you're going through that process.
Great. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Again, we'd like to thank all of our speakers for taking time from your extremely busy schedules to speak with our business community. We're also forever grateful for all the work you have put in as we navigate these unprecedented times as a community. Thank you to all that has joined us today and taking time to do so. We understand how challenging and difficult these last few weeks have been to you both personally and professionally. Please know that everyone you heard from today, the Columbia Chamber of Commerce and all our community partners are here to help as we navigate these uncertain times. We ask that you please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn for continued updates, as well as our COVID-19 resource page at columbiamochamber.com. Remember, this recording will be available shortly after the conclusion of the virtual community panel. We will also get copies of these slide decks, the 2 slide decks that we had, and we'll make sure that those are up there. Also be watching for more business assisting webinars coming soon through the weeks, with different topics that might be helpful to you and your business as you navigate as you navigate these waters with your employees and what to do with your, different things with your organization. With that, we are going to close this virtual our virtual town hall meeting, our business community panel, and we thank you for your time. If there's any assistance that the chamber can be, please reach out to us. Thank you and stay safe.